Before we get into what's inside an event guide, let's talk a little bit about why you need one. Now, many nonprofits are structured with an affiliate model with a centralized national staff creating a template for a peer-to-peer fundraising event that is produced and managed by local staff or volunteers in the market. So in order to build consistency for your brand, maintain quality, create the best possible experience for your supporters, you want to make sure that all of those regional staff and volunteers, many of whom may be early career professionals or new to your organization, have a bulletproof template to work from. And we all know there can be a lot of turnover in nonprofits. I've been hearing that a lot lately. So having a thorough, complete, and consistently updated event guide can make training and coaching new folks a much smoother process. It's also important to have everything in one spot, not just because it makes things easier for your staff to find things, but also because it helps ensure that everyone is working from the most accurate, up-to-date information. So if something changes in your branding and your messaging and your event details, you just update it in your master guide and you don't risk someone working from old info. So now you know you need an event guide. What do you put in it? First, your mission. This should be the guiding star behind everything you do, so put it front and center in your event guide. It should be the first priority you consider when making any decision, and you want your team to know backwards and forwards, particularly if there is specific language that's important to the community that you serve. The section should include not only your organization's mission, but also the mission of your event specifically, including template language that your team can use to talk to participants and the public about how the funds you raise are put to use. You should also clearly state your goals for your event series. The same way you want everyone on the same page with your mission, you want them on the same page about your goals and priorities. Now, these will change every year. Is your goal to raise X amount of money? To raise X% more money than the previous year? Is your goal to have X number of teams, X number of participants, or to activate X% of the participants to raise $100 or more? So figure out what your priorities are and lay them out clearly. Your event guide should have an overview of your organization, including org structure, key contact info, and the basics about where and who to go to for further resources and support. This is where you can outline who's responsible for what. Between national staff, affiliate staff, volunteers, and vendors, who should be responsible, accountable, consulted, or informed about each piece of the event planning process. Then you can lay out an overview of the event series, including dates, locations, basic premise of your event and structure. Include an event branding guide, logos, style guide, approved headlines and taglines, and a little information about the personality and tone of your event in your org. If you have young staff and a lot of turnover, you may want to include a section in your event guide on peer-to-peer fundraising event basics, because you can't take it for granted that people automatically know these, and raising money is probably the #1 purpose of your event. So everyone, no matter how they are involved in your organization, is a fundraiser, or they should be. So for this section, we like to think about things like, why do people participate? Why do donors give? What's the purpose of your event? What is the ask? How do you create a fundraising culture? How do you set goals? And what are the potential pitfalls and common mistakes to avoid? Then lay out the details of your event life cycle. Now, this is a timeline of your critical path. So we might include things like, when do you open registration? When do you do recruitment pushes or discounts? When do you provide fundraising, coaching, and support? When do you start to prepare participants for your event? How do you provide an experience and a culture that encourages retention, that is, participants coming back year after year? And then, of course, what's the on-event experience and what's the post-event follow-up? Depending on how your organization and your event series are structured, you may want a section on committees and volunteers and include things like, how do you recruit them? How do you assign roles and responsibilities? How do you engage and inspire people who aren't getting paid? And similarly, how do you manage and monitor volunteers and committee members, and how do you thank them and retain them and keep them involved? Now, those 5 sections give the broad underpinnings of a successful peer-to-peer fundraising event series. But now you're going to want to dig into the nitty-gritty details, like a section for participant recruitment specifically. Who is your target audience? What's the demographic? Where do you find them? What's the ask? What do you have to offer? Like, why do people want to participate? How do you encourage, build, and retain teams? Do you have any recruitment pushes, discounts, challenges to drive registration and team building? And then, of course, you want a section on fundraising. Lay out the schedule and structure of any fundraising challenges, fundraising rewards, incentives you might have. What kind of coaching, support, tools, and resources do you have to offer? How do you support teams as they fundraise? And how are you cultivating relationships with your participants all year round? Your event guide should also contain the broad strokes of your communication plan, so everyone knows what messages are being sent and when, and who's responsible for making that happen. So list your channels like email, text, phone calls, website, app, social media, and list your audiences and segment out who is getting what message. Include your communication calendar to show the timing and cadence of your message. If sponsors, corporate teams, and community involvement play a big part in your budget and the event experience, you want to include a section that articulates your strategy for that. Because if your event depends on getting big name sponsors or big money corporate teams, you want to make sure you put a lot of attention into creating a strategy and a plan. Now, of course, your event guide should include everything about your event logistics, event day programming, including how you're going to integrate your mission, encourage event day fundraising, recognize your top fundraisers, teams, and VIPs. Not all event guides look the same, and only you can determine what's best to include in yours. The important thing is that you create something like this to ensure consistency across the board, help your staff feel prepared and supported. And if you need help putting together an event guide for your P2P event series, give the experts at Event 360 a call.